So that's it. After more than 5 years of rich esports history, starting with Gosu Weeklies, all the way through to OGN's Apex series, and right up to the heady heights of the Overwatch League, the final hurrah of Overwatch 1 is about to take place in the Overwatch League Season 4 playoffs. 8 of the finest teams in the world have been selected to perform in this last dance, with each and every one of them having had their own unique and occasionally perilous path to success this season. History will be written, but by who? Here are your final 8 Overwatch League season scriptwriters. With the late announcement that the team would be starting in the Eastern region to even out the number of participants, the Philadelphia Fusion struggled to deliver. Their performances determined far too often by the hand they were dealt by each respective consulate for our taste. While they impressively made do with interim signings, the Fusion are still one of the only teams in the playoffs that never made the final 4 of a tournament cycle, so their peak potential is relatively hard to judge, though their play-in performance lends just enough hope to make a Fusion fan dream. It's not like Philly hasn't done the late season peak before, and that at least some of their players like Alarm haven't been consistently top tier throughout the season. Still without Poco, but finally with Shockwave, the team has had about a month to prepare, and there's plenty of options to move in this meta. With an academy team as good as T1, and with Shanghai and Chengdu as the only remaining active Overwatch League teams in the region practicing against them, their scrims are likely to be incredibly high quality, especially in comparison to the other teams. Given that they're receiving probably the best insight into what ball dive looks like at the top level, would you really play that if you were the Gladiators? Always in the top ranks, but without a trophy no longer, the Gladiators come swinging into the playoffs on the back of a Countdown Cup high. Sure, a different meta without bans, and Dallas Fuel and Shanghai Dragons stepping up their preparations will undoubtedly pose additional challenges, but the psychological buff of being a champion is not to be underestimated. Plus, if Wrecking Ball compositions are going to be the end-all be-all of tank hero choices in the playoff meta, the Gladiators have potentially the most experience of any North American teams playing that comp. The truth is, the LA Gladiators should be seen as title contenders, something we're all going to have to get used to after their 4-season-long dry spell. The thing is, if the team built around Kevster and Shu can deliver more world-class performances like they did during Countdown Cup, why would you not be a believer? Regular season, schmegular season. If Washington peaks in the playoffs and wins it all, no one will remember just how bad they were. Who cares that they've never been to Hawaii, had the worst Countdown Cup record out of all the North American teams, and had the worst regular season record of all the playoff teams? The opportunities for a late season peak are served on a platter once again. Decay appears to be playing in peak form, as is Assassin, and their Lucio Moira dive compositions has a similarly cheesy flavour to last year's Roadhog sandwich they ran through the playoff bracket. Therein lies the beauty of this team, as they were arguably the squad with the highest peak potential out of all the play-in teams, and can provide the most thrilling and high-level matches going forward. Having had some additional time to explore, it really isn't out of the question that their team will have further curveballs. The Justice have finally realised that playing perfect Overwatch isn't the only path to victory. Meeting the Dallas Fuel in the first round is the poetic setup, the on-paper worst against the on-paper best. Could you imagine what a Dallas fanbase would sound like if their team were kicked to the lower bracket by the Justice? A team that won the first stage, narrowly lost the second one, had some adapting to the meta in the third stage, structured around a shared history of a top-tier South Korean contenders team, and an iconic main tank. Are we talking about the Runaway Titans or the Element Fuel? What the Fuel have going for them in comparison is that all the unforeseen circumstances, like Z's retirement and the delayed visa for Pine, have played out already and have largely been overcome. If anything, Pine being available for playoffs is no longer out of the question, though forcing through applications might be a trap that the Fuel want to avoid, unless they're supremely confident in his capabilities as a Joker. Throughout the season, the Fuel opted to reinvent themselves, and we've yet to really see them bear the fruits of their transition. Without a significant shake-up in the meta via a patch, can the Fuel really catch up in time? Imagine it. After 2 seasons of domination, you've pretty much played through and decimated the entirety of the Overwatch League, and for the following season, you're just playing for that final achievement. Wouldn't you go to New Game Plus on your next playthrough? Spreading your excellent players and coaches all over the league to make it just that little bit more challenging for you? With Hawaii now unlocked as well, there's only one goal left to chase for San Francisco Shock. Krusty's last 2 playthroughs have been with overpowered builds such as Striker, Ans, and Violet as his primary weapons at the ready for an entire season. This year, Nero became the main hand setup, and he's performed extremely well, arguably being the best performer on the team this season. End boss music has already started playing for them in round 1 of the playoffs, with the Dragons wanting to avoid the shock to go on a roll and level up throughout the playoffs. The question is, will they come to regret that? A team as close to perfect as we've ever seen it. The only thing speaking against the Dragons is that sandbagging to the degree they did with their performance drop-off in the Countdown Cup is often brutally punished in the Overwatch League. Momentum is king, and it has been for the last couple of seasons. Sad as it is, it's probably too late for the Dragons to become the most dominant team of Overwatch 1 history, given that the Shock seem to have booked their ticket with the win in Season 3. But they could certainly make the case closer, after a string of dominant displays and stage titles over the last 3 seasons. It's hard to imagine that this is the same franchise that went 0 for 42 at the start of its league history. Atlanta's rookie Pelican took the league by storm this season. He'll likely take home the Rookie of the Season award with energy to spare, so it'd be all too easy to despair if he was not able to play for the Reign during the season's playoffs due to health-related issues that might keep him from travelling. While all signs are looking positive that he will be able to compete, it might only be possible on a high ping, which will inevitably affect his performance. At the same time though, it should be pointed out that generally speaking, Atlanta has been almost as successful with Kai and Edison starting whenever the team actually had time to prepare for these kinds of situations. Like in their last loss against Chengdu. Yes, they may have taken the L after having to unexpectedly sub out Pelican, but it was still relatively close. It's going to be hard for opponents to find adequate practice against Atlanta Reign's unique style of play. So at us right here, right now, Atlanta Reign are the dark horse team coming into the playoffs. For believers in Wrecking Ball, the Hunters are the second most likely team to come out on top this season, given their consistently incredible performances whenever the meta allowed for it. 3 top 4 finishes and 2 finals appearances should speak for themselves. If there really was a Chengdu zone the last 2 seasons, then their territory has expanded vastly, capturing more and more believers in their compositional archetypes of Wrecking Ball and Farrakhamps, which they've been playing for the majority of their existence. The type of performance that head coach Ray has been able to get out of his team this season has been spectacular, putting Chinese Overwatch in arguably the best place it's ever been. The bracket setting gods have been kind to them too, allowing them to dodge both gladiators and dragons on their way to the winners finals. Having yet to go the extra mile, you have to wonder if there's more potential left in the tank. We've gotten to know the Hunters as a humble, honest team that wears its flaws and limitations on its chest, choosing the best way to play around them. But could it be possible that they themselves are unaware that on their best day, they could pound for pound be the best Overwatch team in the world in almost every position? And that's the teams. The last Overwatch 1 champion will be crowned in one final action-packed week from a selection of the hardest hitting teams in the most competitive season ever. A clash of conflicting styles, a clash of fancied favourites and unrated underdogs, a clash of titans. A last hurrah for a game that has defined the esports scene for more than half a decade, which leaves us with just one question still unanswered. Are you ready?